Problem 1-74. Consider the points -2, 5 and 5, 2 as you complete parts A and B below. Part A. Plot the points and find the distance between them. Give your answer both in simplest radical form and as a decimal approximation. All right, so I've already graphed my 2 points. Here is my point -2, 5, and over here I have my point 5, 2. Let's look at finding the distance between them first. You have a couple options. You could do the distance formula if that's something that you're comfortable with using. I'll go ahead and give you the formula. Distance equals, and we're going to do the square root of the difference between the x coordinates squared, so x2 minus x1 squared plus the difference between the y coordinates, so y2 minus y1 squared. Now, this is pretty much the same thing as if you're using the Pythagorean theorem. And remember, the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared when you have a right triangle. Remember, c squared is always your hypotenuse. And that's the method I'm going to use here because I think that's a little bit faster, a little bit easier here. Think about it here. We have a right triangle here. If we kind of draw in with our points, I'm just kind of sketching it in so you can see it there. We've got, there's our right angle. So this is be our hypotenuse, and this is the distance that we want to find between point -2, 5 and the point 5, 2 there. So if we call that, let's just go ahead and call that C. Now if we look at the length of this side here, we go from 2 all the way up to 5. So our distance here is 3. And the distance along this edge is going to be going from -2 to +5, so we're at 7. If we're going to set it up and use our Pythagorean theorem, we'd want to say 3 squared plus 7 squared is going to equal c squared. So 3 squared is 9, 7 squared is 49. And when we add those together, we should get 58 equals c squared. Now that's not our final answer because we're looking for c, not c squared. Remember, we need to take the square root of each side. And when you do that, we're going to end up with, we can say just c in this case because for this situation here, we don't really need the absolute values because we can't have a negative distance. So we end up with the square root of 58 would be our distance between these 2 points. Now that is our simplest radical form. So we have square root of 58. And then we also have to put our decimal approximation. Well, let's just go ahead there and let's calculate the square root of 58. See if I can get my calculator to come up here. There it is. So let's just pop it up right here. Let's clear out what we've got in there, and let's just do second square root of 58. Enter. And you're going to see we have 7.61577. So the reason it's asking for an approximation is because it's irrational, so it's never going to end. So we're going to have to round it off at some point. So let's just make it 7.62. So you can say here that C is approximately 7.62 units. That would be our answers for A. Now B says find the slope of the line that goes through the 2 points. Well, if we want to do our slope here, actually here, this is our answer for A. So we'll do our B right here. Remember, slope is going to be the difference between the y coordinates over the difference between the x coordinates. So if we look at it here, we've already kind of know what our differences are going to be, but if you think about it in terms of a line, this line has a negative slope to it. So we know that we're going to have to be careful. We can't just choose that 7 and 3 and throw it in there and say that it's going to rise 3 and run 7 because it's obviously got negative slope to it there. And we'll even check it by just going ahead and using the formula. So I'm going to do my 5 minus my 2. And if I do that with my y's, that means I have to do my -2 minus my 5 for my x's. So let's do that. 5 minus 2 over -2 minus 5. And you'll see we will get 3 over -7, which makes sense with everything we've just stated there. So our slope is -3/7. Our distance, one more time, was radical 58 units, or 7.62. This is problem 1-74 from the homework. If you have questions, please make sure you ask your teacher. Thanks for listening.